George Russell was the pre-season driver's title favourite, but he's so far been upstaged by his young teammate Kimi Antonelli, who's 9 points ahead in the championship after the first 3 rounds. Ahead of the Miami Grand Prix, we had a chance, along with other select Formula One media, to catch up with George to see how he's feeling about the rest of the campaign ahead. Here's what he had to say.
Your contract and how the extension clauses were performance related. Obviously, you've got a pretty good weapon so far this year. So how do you stack up? How easy are they going to be achieved? And is it that simple in Formula One that you just need to hit those metrics and you roll over into a new contract?
Yeah, it's pretty much. You hit the metrics and you move on. So, you know, I will be here next year with the team, and that's that. You know, so there's not really much more to say. It's a multi-year deal. You know, it's numerous years, and as we said last year, and as long as, and often in a lot of these contracts, even if metrics aren't hit, if things are happy, then you continue. But as I said, metrics will very likely be hit. So,
is the actuality of being the favourite this season as you'd anticipated? So, are you conscious if you don't win a race, if you're not leading the championship, which you aren't right at this minute, there is that extra critical eye on you?
No, not at all, to be honest, because it's a hell of a long season, and you know, no championship's ever been won after 3 races. So for me, it's always important to maximise the results. I'm not leading the championship, but I've got to be honest, when I look at the circumstance of the last 2 races, I actually feel like I've maximised my results. And that's all I can do. If things had gone slightly differently in Suzuka, I think I could have won that race. If there was no safety car at all, I think I'd have finished second in that race behind Piastri. In China, obviously had the qualifying issue, and I think otherwise I potentially could have been on pole there. So when I look at things rationally, I think I've maximised my results this year. And when I have a clean weekend, as I have in Melbourne, I know I've got the capability of being on pole and winning the race. So obviously I was frustrated coming away from China and Japan, but that's always going to happen at some point in the season. And I'm actually quite thankful that I still managed to get some decent points on the board.
George, in terms of the rule changes or any rule changes that come in, have the drivers got a collective view on what exactly you would like them to do?
I think the 2 headline points are flat out racing, flat out qualifyings, so no lifting coast, and then reducing the closing speeds. And you know, the closing speed of the Behrman Colapinto crash was twofold. One, it was, you know, of course, Behrman was on his boost button and giving himself 350 kilowatts. So he had an abundance of power in an abnormal part of the track. And on the flip side, Colapinto used his boost on the straight before, on the main straights to half a lap before, and was low in his battery. So he had a lack of power. So that is, at least in my eyes, where these closing speed differences are coming from. And I think the FIA are definitely very much aware of that. And from the driver's perspective, just looking to reduce that closing speed in abnormal areas, and especially in non-SM modes. If there's a straight that isn't an SM mode, that means it's because it's a corner. And of course, that the Behrman crash was in a non-SM part of the track. So I think we're all aligned on those points.
3 races in 4 weeks, and now this kind of wear break. How do you feel physically and mentally now that you are facing the fight for the championship?
I felt great prior to any break, and I feel great now, to be honest. Definitely for everybody, you do feel fatigued coming away from those first 3 races, but you're always competing against competitors who are on the same schedule as you. So you're all kind of equally fatigued, and now we're all equally recharged. So I would have loved to have continued racing. And I know that wasn't, of course, in the Middle East, not possible, and it wasn't practical to go anywhere else. But I've just used this time to good use. Spent a lot of time with the team. Going to have numerous days on the simulator prior to Miami to try and iron out some of these issues that have caught us out, unexpected issues that have caught us out. But of course, the main thing is the performance, and the performance looks very strong. So hoping to continue where we left off.
My question is about the fight for the championship. Do you imagine a last race fighting against Kimi Antonelli and only battle the two Mercedes? And you believe that Mercedes will be the same opportunity for the two drivers?
But firstly, 100% they'll give the same opportunity to the two of us. That's always been the case for Mercedes ever since the Lewis and Rosberg days. Of course, I hope it's just the two of us going for the championship, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because, I've said this numerous times, 2022, after 3 races, I think Leclerc had a 30-plus point lead and Verstappen was saying the championship is over. And Ferrari were the quickest, and then at the end they were not. I think we have a very good direction. I think the correlation is very good. We're ticking all of the boxes that tell us we have a really great foundation with the car. But of course, these things change. We know McLaren have not brought a major update recently, and when you look at their performance in Suzuka, as I said, I think Piastri could have won that race without any safety car at all. So, I'm just taking it race by race. The championship is not even in my mind. I just go to every race, try and maximize the performance, and we'll count the points at the end of the season.
Has your relationship with Kimi changed in any way now that the stakes are higher for the two of you?
No, not at all, to be honest. I think we're both professional. We've still got a very good relationship. And it's something we're not even talking about, to be honest. Within the team, it's not even being spoken about. And I even remember when I was a junior driver here in 2017, 2018, when the fight was pretty strong at points with Ferrari for the team. The championship wasn't even on anyone's mind. What was on everybody's mind was performance and getting the maximum every single weekend, developing the car, and that's my personal mentality. I can't speak for Kimi, but that's how it is for now.
The next race weekend coming up, Miami was one of Kimi's best tracks. Does that put you under a bit of more pressure, given the current championship situation, to beat him there?
No, not at all, because, that, as he said, that was his strongest track last year. But, I had 20 plus other tracks that were very strong for me. And, this is a championship is won over the whole season, and as long as I maximize my points by the end of the season, what happens race by race, no one remembers, and that is my goal. That is what I'm confident in achieving over a course of a championship. Consistency, good results on the bad days, victory on the good days, and that is going to continue to be my goal every single weekend. So, as I said, I'm not thinking about Kimi. I'm not thinking about the championship. I'm focused on myself. I have things that I also need to improve around the race start, because that is clearly a very important factor. I have things I need to improve around, the safety car restart, as I made some procedural errors that led to me being overtaken by Lewis in Japan, and then the problem later in the race with Leclerc. So, if I iron out these things, we're in a very different situation. So,
how aware are you of what potential foreseen consequences or unintended consequences there could be? Because obviously, if you take away from one part to fix one problem, presumably there's got to be a trade-off, right? So, is it just you're going to have to accept the cars being maybe a second slower or something over a qualifying lap, or there are other impacts in terms of how the cars will behave if you charge the battery or deploy in a different way?
I mean, as you say, there will be a compromise somewhere, because right now the cars are set up to produce the fastest lap times possible, which is leading to this lift and coast driving style and a bit of energy management here and there. But there's a lot of low hanging fruit. For example, the minus 350 kilowatts superclip is a no brainer, and that already in itself is going to avoid a lot of energy, a lot of lift and coast. Sorry, having the minus 350 kilowatt superclip. And there's other small parts of the regulation that say you can only derate the engine at a certain rate. So on a very short straight, there isn't enough time to go from 350 kilowatts to a superclip because the straight is too short. Some small changes around these regulations will have a major improvement for the overall sort of driving experience. So, as I said, this race offered a good opportunity for everyone to go around that loop. The FIA have been in a lot of comms with a handful of drivers, and that's been sort of collective. And at least from the FIA technical standpoint, it's probably the closest relationship we've had with them in numerous years. So that's very positive to see.
On the 2022 scenario that you just mentioned, how much do you expect the field to bunch up in Miami already? We saw McLaren making a step in terms of the PU understanding in Japan. Now everyone has time to look at the data, come up with significant upgrade packages. And the second part of the question, how much room for potential and development potential do you feel your own package still has?
Well, I think we definitely hit the ground running in the first 3 races. And you actually saw that with all of the PU manufacturers, or at least ourselves and Ferrari, that we, as the factory team, have a better understanding of the energy management compared to the customer teams. And that's only fair because we have hundreds of people, working towards that, and we've been working on the simulator towards this for 3 years now. So naturally, those major differences we saw in Melbourne, I think, is already closed up, and everyone's going to continue to get a greater understanding race by race. So to answer your question, I think the field will slowly bunch up, but I don't think you're going to suddenly see any drastic changes. But I don't expect our major pace advantage to continue indefinitely. I think the others are going to be hot on our heels.
George, before that pace advantage disappears, you'll be able to go to every race and fight for the win. What does that change in the way you approach the weekend and also you work during the weekends, especially when things don't go well, let's say in FP1, knowing that compared to the previous years, now you have the tools to fight for the win at every opportunity?
It's quite interesting. It doesn't change a lot or anything, to be honest. And I'm also trying to understand in my head why. I'm a competitor and I'm a fighter, and you thrive upon the challenge, and achieving the victory via this great challenge is what is most rewarding. And I think going to every weekend knowing now we have the chance for victory, it doesn't make me more or less excited or more or less motivated. I've been in the sport long enough now that I know how to deal with both ends of the spectrum of having a great car and having the slowest car. So I'm just going about my business, treating it as any other race weekend, and just enjoying what I'm doing.
Max has obviously been quite critical about the rules, hasn't he? And at the last race, he sort of said that, casting doubt over his future, I guess. And then obviously since then, race engineer is on the way out. So I was just wondering, is it likely, do you think, that he'll walk away? Is there any danger of that? can Formula One survive without Max?
Well, Formula One's bigger than any driver, so you wouldn't want to lose Max, because I think we all enjoy racing against Max, and it's just part and parcel of Formula One. I didn't enjoy driving the 22 car when it was porpoising up and down, killing everybody's backs. The car was big, it was heavy, the high-speed corners, it wasn't very pleasant to drive around, but he didn't have the same complaint because he was winning. Now, the complaints that he has currently are different to the complaints of Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren, because we're at the front end of the grid, and this is only natural, and you do understand and recognize the frustration, but he's achieved what most drivers dream of, which is winning a championship. He's got 4 of them, and at the end of the day, I guess you get to a point in life that there's not really much more for him to achieve in Formula One. He's ticked all the boxes. Maybe he can go after the records, but knowing him as I do, and knowing drivers who have won or achieved similar things, at one point you want to do what puts a smile on your face. And if driving the Nordschleife, I can totally understand why driving the Nordschleife puts a smile on his face. I've driven hundreds of laps around the Nordschleife on the simulator, and I would love to have that chance to go and race around the Nordschleife. But my goal now is to become a Formula One world champion. If I have 4 of them under my belt, I'd probably be doing the same. So, he's in a very different stage of his career. And, I think you'd understand if he stayed, and you'd understand if he went.
We saw you meet Eileen Gu on Wednesday. So how was the meet? And she recently gave a very inspiring speech saying focusing on self-evolution matters more than the victory itself. And I want to win because I'm strong, not because my opponents are weak. So how do you resonate with this, especially now as Kimi showing incredible pace and the other teams bring updates? The benchmark is rising so fast.
Yeah, Eileen's a very impressive woman and very impressive athlete. And obviously, Carmen and I had the pleasure of meeting her in Geneva, and inspiring just to hear her story, and the fact that she is still studying at Stanford while being a professional champion in her own discipline. And she's a big inspiration for a lot of people. So I respect her. I respect her story a lot, and it was great to see her.